Okay, thank you everyone who's joined, and to the ones listening on a recording. So this is, we call this Key Takeaways from Future Decoded, which is a recap of some of the high-level messages from Future Decoded, but also some more detailed answers. So the idea is that for those who couldn't attend, it's a bit of a recap, and for those that did attend, we've got the opportunity to ask questions about what they may have heard. You can actually view the event highlights. You can see on the screen there's a button on the left hand side. You can actually download the presentations, the keynotes and other highlights from futuredecoded.com. You can see the web link there on the right hand side of the screen. So quick introductions. I'm going to be handing over in a minute to Chris Tilley, who's a technical architect at HSO. My name is David Little. I'm the Managing Director of HSO UK, and I'm going to be hosting this session. And Catherine Gerdes is our Marketing Executive who organised this webinar. So the agenda is a quick recap on Microsoft's strategy and particularly its focus on AI. Then Chris is going to talk about, drill down into AI and give us some working examples. And then I'm just going to do a summary and way forward, and then that should take us up to about 45 minutes, and then we've got time for questions after that, if anybody's got any. So Microsoft's mission statement, which you may have heard many times, which is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. But in this case, what they've also added, in the case of AI, that means helping organizations harness their potential successfully, but also responsibly. And I'll come back to the theme about responsibly in a minute. At Future Decoded, Microsoft launched this report called Maximizing the AI Opportunity. We can get you copies of that report, or you can download it. And I'm going to be talking about some of the content in that report, and Chris is also going to be talking about that as we go through this webinar. So just a quick reminder of Microsoft's go-to-market proposition. They've organized over the last year and a half all of the different technologies and propositions that they have quite neatly into 4 key areas. Modern workplaces, the traditional areas of things like Outlook and Office that we're all familiar with. Business applications is Microsoft Dynamics, Dynamics 365, Finance and Operations, ERP and CRM. Which is the area that HSO is most directly involved in traditionally. Applications and infrastructure is the cloud and Azure, and data and AI is the analytics side of things. Another area that HSO is quite heavily involved in, and a massive focus for Microsoft and for the industry. And the objective of all those things, but you can see that AI has got probably the most direct role in all of these, which is optimizing operations, which is traditionally what technology has done. Also, newer themes are empowering employees, engaging far better with customers, and ultimately also transforming products, so changing products through the technology that you've got. So on day 2, just quick check, by the way, that the screens are moving quickly enough.
It is now, yeah.
Okay, cool. So moving to day 2's keynote, where Satya Nadella, the Chief Executive of Microsoft, talked about the overall landscape for technology. And I think it's true to say that technology is moving far quicker than it ever has done. And actually, that's a statement that people have actually made for decades. But the difference is that now it's actually happening. The last 2 to 4 years, the pace of change has just become phenomenal. Both the development of technology, but also the adoption of technology by people and by businesses. So every industry, I think everybody would agree with this, that every industry and everything is being embedded with digital technology. Every industry is using technology in different ways. Every device that we see, whether it's around the home or workplace, is embedded with digital technology. And that's forcing a reaction from businesses. So in the view of Satya, and it seems to make a lot of sense, every organization will need to develop what they call tech intensity. And part of that is adopting technology faster than we ever have done before. So Satya also talked about building our own digital capabilities on top of the technology that we've adopted. So what it means is that we've put in systems into our business in order to do things for our business, to make our business more efficient. What we need to do is take that on to the next level and say, actually, how do we work with that technology to actually change what we do, to build our own digital capabilities, not just at the side of the organization, but embedded into it. And something that he regularly says is that every company will become a software business, a software organization. In other words, you're not just a company that sells products or sells services anymore. The technology is part of what you sell and what you offer to people, regardless of what industry that you're in. And finally, he talks about building technology that will enable you to build more technology. And I think Chris will talk about that and illustrate that when he does his bit. It's not just about out-of-the-box working solutions, it's about capabilities that are delivered by Microsoft, which can then be taken and extended into unique capabilities for you. And that's a key thing, because you need to differentiate with the technology that you've got, not just be the same. And back to day one in the report, some very interesting findings out of the report. Everybody thinks that artificial intelligence is going to be incredibly disruptive. So of all the new technologies that are coming out, artificial intelligence is the one that is going to be the most disruptive. There's obviously lots of things in the news about what it may do, for our workforce, what positions and roles it may replace. Driverless cars, robots talking to us, and all these things. So I think all these ideas and themes are well known. But interestingly, UK business leaders are saying that their current business model won't exist in 5 years. So 41% of business leaders are saying that, according to the report. But most businesses don't have a proper AI strategy to address that challenge. Interestingly, also, businesses that are using AI, according to the report, perform better. But it's also interesting that 37% of businesses are not even thinking about using AI at all. One crucial element to it is bringing humans along with you, and I think it's something that everybody's concerned about, doing it ethically. And a lot of the panelists and also the report itself talks about how that's key to making it not just successful, but actually more successful. And Cindy Rose, the CEO of Microsoft, acknowledged that that's where progress has got to be made, is engaging employees with the technology that is actually going to change the way that they do things. So rather than just technology replacing people, technology being used to effectively make people more effective and then working with it. And employees are actually enthusiastic generally about the capabilities of the technology. So they're open to experimenting with artificial intelligence. They see the potential to streamline processes and stop doing mundane tasks, and they believe it will create new jobs and industries. But at the same time, there's also a concern, will it leave people behind, particularly older generations? And clearly people are concerned about how it could replace their own jobs. And obviously very few people are learning about what the differences are to their jobs from the new technology. So here's a crucial statistic, that companies that basically prioritize diversity and inclusion and have a responsible attitude towards AI and about a culture of transparency actually do better statistically by 9%. So on top of the 5% of better performance from using AI, if you implement it in the right way, then you can improve by a further 9%. So that's really the beginning of my introduction. So how can you start working with it? Chris is going to give you some worked examples. Start with ethics, set out your priorities, clarify what you want to be done, and think about augmenting people's skills in your organization. So at this point, I'll hand over to Chris.
Hi there. Let me just share my screen so you can see. Hopefully you can all see me now. So yeah, as David said, there's quite a lot of messages that came out of the Future Decoded conference. We can't unfortunately cover them all, so we're taking away the key takeaways, and I'm going to try and explain some of them to you. Just having some technical challenges there. There we go. So I'll not spend too long on the keynote messages, as David's covered them quite clearly. But I'd like to talk a little bit about behind the buzzwords, because we often mention AI and machine learning in a kind of high level buzzwordy manner, and not actually what does that mean? What is AI? What's machine learning, and why is it useful? And just reiterate the why now. And then move on to a little bit of how we might harness AI. I've only got one little example for you that I actually will open a tool to show you, and I've got some screen grabs and some descriptions of how you might approach it in your own business, and then a little bit about how you may get started yourselves. So just to reiterate, the key messages were AI is woven to our world, and I'll get some examples of where you can see AI on a day-to-day basis. And the time for AI is now. That was it. They were pushing that hard because we're at a crux of power, available power in the cloud, connected devices, and these powerful algorithms that we can leverage without having to know how to write ourselves. And it means that AI is an engine of transformation. You saw some of the figures from David there about the relative growth of companies who are actually using AI against those who had no strategy. And also Microsoft are big on the ethics of AI. And I've got a couple of slides to discuss that. And finally, I'll show you some links and some great places to find to start on your journey of learning AI if you feel it's relevant to you. So just a couple of a few examples there of artificial intelligences in use and valuable already. One of the big tools that impressed me was at the recent Seattle conference, the Business Application Summit, was the voice to text. Virtually every presentation had the speakers text coming up immediately on the screen as part of their presentation. It wasn't because they were reading from a script, it was because cognitive speech services were translating that speech into text. And there was all kinds of people speaking in their second or third languages, some quite heavy accents, and all I saw very few errors, and it was very impressive. And video conferencing translation, you know, you can speak to a colleague in your language and they can read it in French or any of the other language which this translation services support. And things we use every day, Google Maps and Bing Maps, and ways to get us from A to B quicker. Product recommendations, particularly the big retailers, they drive a lot of sales through product recommendations. And then from a kind of operational viewpoint, you can forecast your financials based on historical data and modeling, and the same with demand. You know, how many new sets of my product should I order? How much parts do I need to get to service the demand from my customers? And one which I found quite interesting and come on to a bit later is sentiment analysis from a block of text or a couple of sentences. What's the overall sentiment of that statement? Is it a positive statement, a neutral statement, or somewhere in between? So this is from a McKinsey report. Again, there's some screen grabs from Microsoft here. AI could add £10 trillion to economic output by 2030. Now that's a big number, and I'm not quite sure where they've got it from, but it just shows you that the belief that Microsoft have that this is a driver in future growth, and really important to be behind, and that part of that growth will be 10% increase in GDP in the UK. And why AI is now, as we've mentioned already, why it's so timely for AI is the growth of data. You know, I think it's every 3 years now they think that the data that's stored doubles, and that data is now connected by the pervasiveness of the cloud. You know, multiple devices in everybody's home, in people's pockets, in their cars, at work, will be connected to the cloud, and you can drive all this data through incredibly powerful algorithms on hyperscale cloud technologies, which data scientists and experts have already written that we can leverage to get actionable predictions and insights into our data. So this again refers to the Maximizing the AI Opportunity report that David highlighted. I would strongly recommend you download it and have a read. It gives you a really good idea of Microsoft's viewpoint and their strategy and how they see AI moving forward. And some of the principles they work on, and you can read them there. The the main thing they go on is it has to be trustworthy, create solutions that reflect ethical principles. So they should be fair, they should be reliable and safe, transparent. You should understand the decisions they're making, even if you couldn't necessarily replicate them yourselves. And one that I found interesting was accountability there. AI systems should have algorithmic accountability. Now, I took that to mean you should be able to explain why something happened. Now, there was a big stock market crash back in 2010, a big flash crash where over $1 billion, I think it was over $1 trillion was wiped off the currency markets. And they suspect that was down to either an algorithm error, a coding error somewhere, which caused the markets to crash and then rebound very quickly. Now, they've never quite been able to explain that crash. And you can find a few more examples like that as well. So it's just reiterating the fact that these technologies are powerful, but we still need to keep a handle on them and understand where they are, where they're going. One of the big tenets was AI for good. You can see there they've got some big programs, AI for Earth, for accessibility and for humanitarian action. Particularly with humanitarian action, they've committed a lot of money to support nonprofits and organizations working and disaster response to optimize where the resources are at what time. Rather than somebody sat with spreadsheets and maps and things, they're able to force that data through algorithms to make sure that the resources are in as optimized a place as they can be based on the data they have. So one thing we mentioned was sentiment analysis, which was talking about given a block of text or some speech, what does that mean? So one of the interesting examples they took was one of their cloud solution architects created an analysis of all the works of Shakespeare and run them through sentiment analysis. Now that's something, you can read a book and get a feel for it. But if I just move to this, the play of Romeo and Juliet, you can see above the line is positive, below the line is negative. And it gives you a feel for through the course of the play as the acts and scenes down here, whether it was positive sentiment or negative sentiment. And you can see that it's about right towards the end. Romeo is very sad. It shows you the emotional turmoil within the play. There's dramatic points, plot twists and turns. So one thing that they highlighted is it's actually seen to be Romeo here, who's in the blue line, who suffers from the extreme emotional volatility, which I found quite interesting. So that appears to be a reasonable representation. But if you move to Hamlet, if it'll allow me to just move on there. This is a tragedy, a very complicated tragedy with lots of nuances, pretend madness, deception, mingled with truth. And as you can see, in this case, AI gets the message completely wrong. As far as AI is concerned, these Hamlet meets the ghost, these big points in the play, okay, it might notice them as slightly negative, but overall it sees this as a very positive play, which of course isn't the truth. And that just gives you a good handle on being careful with your predictions. And back to that accountability in AI, make sure that what you're predicting is accurate, especially if you're making huge decisions off the back of it. And to facilitate that, they're pushing Microsoft AI Academy. And as you can see there, they've got a target for 500,000 people trained on AI skills. I don't know what their date target is for that, but that's a pretty lofty goals. And if you go to that short URL there, that will take you to the learning site. And I've got some links later about the AI Academy and where to find these tools. So behind the buzzwords, what actually is it? I hear machine learning and AI talked about a lot, but nobody really seems to go down to the guts of saying what actually is this then, because machines clearly are not sentient and they're not clever. They just do what we tell them to. So perhaps slightly simply, I took it and broke it down. So what is a machine? Computer, it's a machine for performing calculations automatically. Learning is clearly progressively improving performance, and an algorithm is a process or a set of rules. So that implies that machine learning is algorithms that can learn, which it is in a way, but the learning process is not them becoming sentient and learning. It's as you feed your data through these algorithms, it allows the algorithm to work out which relationships between the data are relevant. Perhaps you have a weather feed and a sales feed and some customer feed. You couldn't necessarily look at that feed and understand the relationships and the key data, but the point of machine learning is they can find patterns you wouldn't see. And artificial intelligence is the field of computer science dedicated to solving cognitive problems, i.e. thinking problems. And machine learning is simply a subset of AI. So if you see the two used interchangeably, it's because machine learning is as I say, a subset of AI. And again, just to restate, machine learning works by training computer systems to use algorithms to spot patterns in data and behave in a predictive way. And that is the key point. These are all predictions. They are given this set of data and these scenarios. Can I make any predictions based on that data? And then can I make some useful business decisions based off that? So our high-level process is simply prepare and identify your data. What feeds am I going to use? Where is it? How up to date is it? You then pick your model and you build your prediction model. You train it with data that's historical data that you know the result for, and then you deploy that. Sounds very simple put in those simple steps, but that's basically the high level process, and we'll revisit that a little bit later when we've seen a bit more. So why is now the time to get on board? And looking at the state of AI in the UK, David mentioned some of these facts. And this is from a McKinsey report, which Microsoft call out in the Maximizing the AI Opportunity report. Organizations already on that journey are outperforming by 5%. If you have the right approach to AI now, you're outperforming those that don't by 9%. And again, just to restate, 41% of organizations say their business model will cease to exist in 5 years. So change is essential to stay alive. And just to highlight some of the benefits of that, and that's a direct quote from Amazon on their Machine Learning What is AI page. Without machine learning, Amazon.com couldn't grow its business, improve its customer experience, and optimize its logistics speed. So it's not just the product recommendations you see, their whole operation, how to schedule their deliveries, what their stock flow looks like, is all powered by machine learning and AI. So why now? Again, it's big data, it's massive compute power, the hyperscale clouds that we can barely conceive of, and forcing that through powerful algorithms. And Microsoft view that as some people-centered experiences, so they're very insistent on people, all linked together with the devices, with computing everywhere, and the intelligent edge being AI capabilities on your devices. So on your phone, when you speak to a built-in assistant such as Cortana or Siri, they're understanding your voice and your intentions and thinking perhaps he's trying to book an appointment here by what you're saying, and by using machine learning and algorithms to understand your intent, your sentiment. So that said, where can we actually use artificial intelligence? One of the most impressive, I think, is some of the features coming in Excel. Now you can probably see those working there. These are some preview features. On the top left, there's ideas. So given a set of data, you can basically click your data in a table, click any cell, click the ideas tab, and up comes some useful insights. You know, between these dates, sales dropped in this region, but they went up in this region. And that's built in, and that does use machine learning, and that's not something you pay for or have to configure. It's just there against your data. And down the bottom there, you see that's an Android tool set, which is in preview at the minute. If you sign up for the Office 365 Insider and you're on a subscription, you can see they've grabbed a screen grab there, and that has converted it into a table and allowed you to start working on that Excel data as normal, simply by taking a screenshot. And all of that uses image recognition services to convert that to actually useful Excel data. Within the tools I'm more comfortable with, Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations, you've already got demand forecasting. So as you can see there, this is a restatement of the method we talked about earlier. You're generating a statistical baseline based on historical data. So there's your data set, your training data set. I know what happened in the past. I knew how much I sold based on conditions at the time. So you can then use a changeable set of forecast dimensions. You can set your own parameters, and you can then define your confidence intervals. How sure do you want this algorithm to be? An adjustment to the forecast yourself, and then authorize that forecast, remove the outliers, the data you didn't feel was relevant. And then you can afterwards measure how accurate you were and thus refine your model if you want. So as a flow, that's simply like that, which is kind of similar to how we talked earlier. Gather your transactional data, use machine learning to generate a forecast, view and make changes, and authorize that forecast. And you can see there, that's a screen grab from Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations, and that is built in. That's not something that's customized. That is available to you. There was a product recommendations for the modern point of sale. That's currently been retired because they're re-engineering the algorithm to make it more predictable and more retail focused. So you will be able to take advantage of that pre-built AI within Dynamics 365 for retail point of sale. Within the other 365 Dynamics 365 suite, the AI for sales, customer service, and market insights all have built-in AI. There's a couple of pages which highlight all this. We can probably circulate the useful links after this. But just to focus on Dynamics 365 for sales, these are built-in AI tools and AI options. Increase your conversion and win rates. It prioritizes your leads and opportunities for you based on data that's in your system and historical data and feeds that you provide to it. And again, response rates, warm introductions, colleagues that know the people that you know, they're all in as actionable insights that you can use straight out of the box. Within sales here, you can see there's connections found down the bottom right and emails received. That was a sentiment analysis you can see there, offering is quite impressive. So these relationship assistant, this is all AI driven and helps you manage your relationships within Dynamics 365 for sales. And again, open opportunities by relationship. It tells you the relationship health, whether it's good, and some useful actionable data there. So within 365, there's quite a long list of planned features. I've not got them all on there, just a quick screen grab. But if you go to the October 18 release notes for Dynamics 365, you'll see what's available and what's coming. The March 2019 release notes aren't out yet, but they're expected sometime around late December or January. Just check the time there. So given that, how do we actually use AI to solve business problems? Well, there's pre-built services in Azure, at present, and these are all pre-built APIs, application programming interfaces that your enterprise developers can take advantage of. Use the skills that they already have building apps to actually call out to some of these powerful machine learning and artificial intelligence APIs. So just to take one example, the vision image processing algorithm, Shell, are using smart cameras at service stations as a trial. And they're looking for reckless behavior, theft, things like that. But they're also able to identify, and this is in pilot, I understand, people smoking at the pump and flag that up to their operator, who can then go and prevent that reckless activity, that unsafe activity. So this is just a good example of where one of these tools has been taken and used actively to make a really useful improvement to the way the business works, improving safety. There's also more of an Azure-based approach, a bit of a solution architect approach to take a number of tools which are available in Azure. Now, there is a lot of tools available. There's some links we can share, which kind of Azure 101, as it were, which boil down and simplify each tool. So we've got some stream analytics. We've got near real-time analytics on an input stream. We've got event hubs, which ingest near real-time stream data. An event is just a change of status, too hot, failed, speed, overspeed, something like that. And we can use the machine learning studio, which is an Azure tool, to create models which we can then use to analyze data for patterns, and use something like HD Insight, which is a large scale analysis program, to create aggregations on these raw events from the streams. And we can use Data Factory, which is orchestration, scheduling, monitoring of the batch processing pipeline. It's kind of a cloud version of SQL Server integration services, if people have used that before. So given all that, why is that useful? Well, one example, and this is directly from the Microsoft Solution Architect site, is aircraft monitoring for predictive maintenance. So you can see how they tied these things together, all these tools, to make something useful. Monitor those engines, get the state of the engines from sensor data, and then predict whether engines are likely to fail. Now, Rolls-Royce are a company who've moved towards servitization now, so they don't really sell engines as such, they sell engine hours. So things like that are very useful to them because they want to predict when their engines are fail, do just-in-time maintenance, and lower their overall costs. So far I've been talking slightly conceptually, so if I move to a kind of real example that we can have a quick look at a worked example. some people might have heard of the Titanic. It's used as a machine learning example. Some colleagues and I went to a session in June, I think it was, in Seattle, which was very useful. So basically, as we all know, the Titanic sunk. There was an element of luck in surviving the sinking, but some groups of people were clearly more likely to survive than others. And we have that data. Here's just a screen grab of some of that data. So the passenger ID, whether they survived or not, that's key because this is our predictive field. The passenger class they were in, name, that's probably not so relevant. The sex of the passengers, as you can see, there's a lot of data there. Now, we can look at this ourselves and say, well, I don't think the name of the person is going to be relevant to whether they survive or not. So we could probably dismiss that. Passenger class, I'm not so sure. The ticket number, probably not relevant. But then you think, well, actually, that ticket number could have some hidden data that I'm not aware of. For example, we may not know that the third last digit defines what class they're in, for example. So I took this from Kaggle, which is a machine learning competition site. So from that, you can build an Azure machine learning web service. So if I can just flick to a demo, let's hope this works. First off, I'll just show you the Azure Machine Learning Studio. Now it doesn't respond too well for me at the minute. This is an example machine learning model that I took from somebody else. This is all free to play around with. You can get a free version, free level of processing. So I won't go through, I'm not a data science expert, but you've got the data set here, and it's a workflow. It's a drag and drop style workflow. Select the columns in the data set you're interested in, edit some of the metadata. You might say, well, I don't want it to say male and female. I want it to be 1 for male and 0 for female, or vice versa. So you're cleaning your data, clean missing data. You can create columns from other columns, so-called dummy columns. And then you have, you can pick, this is the algorithm, and you may try that algorithm. You may try another algorithm. And basically, this model is then testable. You test it, work out how predictable it is, and then you can surface this as a web service. So in this case, it's a not that useful example to us. We're predicting who lived and who died from Titanic, but just to prove something like that does work, I have an Excel sheet here with an example of some of the data you might use to train a model like that. Push all this through the model because you know whether they survived or not. So this is your predictive column. If it equals 1, they survived. If it's 0, they died. And that's your key. So this could be something like, did the engine fail? Did the person make that upsell? And then if I look at this, you can actually, within Excel, call machine learning web services now. So this is a bit of a silly example, but it gets the idea across. So I'm just going to configure this. This is a demo from Microsoft. So I'm going to grab my input here. Hopefully this will work. It did last time I tried. And I'm going to have my output from H1 and include the headers. Let's see if this works. So what that's done is that's passed this data off to a web service in the cloud, and it's come back with these are the actual probabilities, and it's rounded that up as part of the model to whether it thinks this person would have lived or died based on the data. So you could conceivably push your own data to that and get useful insights. Just check if I've got any questions come through. Not yet. So just to reiterate that, you can deploy an Azure machine learning predictive model. There's a lot of samples you can download. They may be appropriate for you. You can create your own. You can deploy that model as a web service, which means it's accessible from anywhere that can call a web service, be it one of the Dynamics 365 suite. You can call it from Azure, Excel, as we saw. You could treat it like a formula within Excel. You could use a Power App, which we're not touching on today, but they're very powerful app building tools that Microsoft have provided, and get that predictive result on any device you choose. And the key is you've got lots of data. You've used that data to create a predictive model, and then in future you can use that data to predict. So you deploy your model as a web service. You call that web service to return predictive results to help you make decisions. For example, how likely would they make the sale? Would that person default on a payment schedule? Would this air filter fail? And then that data you've changed that data into information to give you some actionable insights. And there's just a screen grab of the Machine Learning Studio in case my internet failed. So just back to the method. What predictions can you make with your data? Start thinking about your data. Have you got data sets which you think would help you make predictions, would be useful to you in your business? And this is an Amazon screen grab, but I thought that was a really nice way of showing it. You start from the business challenge. So you don't just look at all your data and think, well, what can I do here? There must be some business challenges you work on in your organization. You identify the predictions you'd like to make, then you work with your data and your engineering team to identify that data and pass it to some analysts and data scientists. That could be internal, that could be external. And then from that, you have a model which you can then embed in an application to start making some useful predictions, or perhaps build Power BI results and visualizations off your model. And just to finish off with, there's some great resources out there. As we said earlier, Microsoft are really pushing that we must all go with AI. They want to bring employees with you, and they don't want to leave anyone behind. So to do that, it's not just giving lip service to it. All these are really great resources to start learning. Let me just pull this over here. There's solutions you can go and have a look at. Discover the customer service with AI. There's a little bit of marketing blurb, but then you get into how do we actually use it, and particularly the AI platform. So they want to demystify AI, and perhaps you want to look at some predictive maintenance. It'll take you through all that. But the one I really like is the AI school. They've invested heavily in this. You've got learning paths, so you can get your guys and girls onto learning. Have a look at the APIs. Is face recognition useful to you? Is text analytics useful to you? It's for some very powerful stuff. So with that, I will pass back to David. Unless there's any questions now, I'll pass back to David to do a bit of a wrap up and discuss what we've talked about.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
David.
Okay,
I'm not sure if you needed presentation there,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I'm just loading up my screen. Can you see my screen?
yeah.
So some of you may be familiar with this. It's actually very old. I think it was originally done by Gartner. It's called the hype cycle. It's been around probably for decades, and it applies particularly to technology. And there's a version that kind of shows you all sorts of detailed explanations across this curve. And basically, there is a thing called Amara's law, and the basic idea is that we tend to massively overestimate the effect of technology at the beginning, and then underestimate it in the long term. But one of the interesting things about AI is that we have been talking about it for decades. I don't know if you remember. If you're not as old as me, you might not remember. There was a thing that IBM had called Big Blue, and it took on the chess player Garry Kasparov, and everybody got very excited about it. And people were talking about, will machines replace humans back in the 1990s? So I think the important thing about this hype cycle is that it's been through it, or if it's come back as a new hype cycle, it's going to be massively compressed. So there's a number of things that make it different from previously. So why now? We've talked about the cloud and its ability to process vast volumes of data, and also the intelligence that's being built into the cloud by Microsoft. And as a result of people starting to use AI, the algorithms are improving rapidly. We're obviously using, all of us, AI in every aspect of our lives at the moment, whether it's Netflix recommending programs to us, or Google Maps telling us where we should go. it's actually happening to us all the time. And for me, actually, one of the biggest things, in addition to the cloud, is mobile technology. I think it's mobile technology, and as people have got used to using mobile technology in their day-to-day lives, and the transfer of that into business, that's going to make one of the biggest differences. So one of the things that HSO is seeing as we work with customers is moving away from traditional systems with people sitting at screens with data and fields, moving towards apps. And I think very quickly following people working with apps will be people expecting AI to tell them what to do, to direct them towards things, to help them to do tasks much more efficiently. So it is here now. And to the point about how's it going to affect my business, and some of the doomsday predictions about businesses not able to survive, it's probably worth just reminding ourselves of some of the businesses that have gone in recent times. Obviously, it started with retail, but it's now moved into hospitality, and I think very quickly it's going to move into service industries as well, that are being massively disrupted. And if they don't basically adopt technology, and particularly artificial intelligence, they're going to be left behind. And obviously, as well as the ones that, the ones that have not survived, there are a whole range of new companies that have come up that 10 or 15 years ago didn't even exist. And you may have seen this analysis before, where the amount of time that businesses are taking to grow and also die is speeding up. So in the 1920s, an average business lasted 67 years. At the moment, it's 15 years and dropping fast. So just finally, next steps. Chris has mentioned a lot of the resources and materials that you can get access to. Please come and ask HSO if you think that we can give you any help. I think to summarize, what we can do is we can help define problems and also direct you at the right solutions. It's worth saying as well that HSO is, I think we've got expertise in this area, but also the nature of the technology is that it needs to be adopted by you. So we are probably a step ahead of many companies, but not many steps ahead, to be honest, because the idea is that this is technology that end users and businesses themselves adopt. You don't have to come to the likes of HSO to basically do it for you. We can give you guidance because we're very close to Microsoft and their technology, but we'll be looking for you to adopt these things and take them forward in your businesses yourself. Go to the Future Decoded website if you want to replay any of the sessions and see the full sessions that we've summarized today, and download the AI report, or come and ask HSO. So thank you very much to everyone for your attention, and do we have any questions, Catherine?
We've just got one question at the moment. How realistic is it to start these projects now?
Shall I? I'll take that at a high level, Chris, and then if you maybe want to take it on. How realistic is it now? I think so I was with a customer yesterday talking about this, and we talked about the full range of things that you can do. And there are some things that actually you'll just be given anyway, and you may not even notice. So for example, when you went on to Outlook, the look of it suddenly changed from having, I've now got focused and other. So it just did that for you. And actually in the Dynamics 365 applications and the wider Office 365 and Microsoft 365 applications, just more and more of these things will just appear on your desktop, and they'll start to just recommend the tasks and activities that you should be focusing on based on your daily activities and the way that you do things. So it's incredibly usable. And then I think that the question then is, how more sophisticated do you want to get? And if you can identify specific issues, then we can obviously come and direct you at the right technologies. I think Chris has shown you some of the things that can be done very quickly, and obviously there's the full spectrum up to very sophisticated applications. I mean, another example of something which is I think is going to be taken on very quickly is just the use of bots. And again, inside the Microsoft technology within Power BI and some of the analytics and in other areas of the system, you can now just ask it questions in normal English, and it'll interpret what you're saying using artificial intelligence and give you answers. You don't need to click on buttons and download graphs and so on. You can just ask your system questions, and that is there available now. Chris, would you like to add anything?
No, I would just echo that. Start from the business requirement, and then you can start thinking about, given that requirement, what data have you got that might complement that, and where does that data live? Start from the requirement, document that, and start moving forward. And as you say, you may find a lot of the services you're after and the tools you need are pre-built, so you might be able to just call them and use them. And obviously you can then increase in complexity. But I do think that Microsoft are correct. It's start now.
Yeah, I think Microsoft are just trying to make it as easy as possible to consume these things. I think that's a great part of their strategy. Okay, so I think we should probably wrap up there. I don't think there's any more questions coming. So thank you again for your attention, and have a good day.
Thanks for joining.